Hello and welcome to Sports Room. I'm Anirudh Madhavan and with me is veteran journalist Ayaz Memon. On today's episode, we'll talk about the just concluded India-South Africa Test match, the retirements of Dean Elgar and David Warner, and also about the questions over the future of Test cricket. So we'll start with the India-South Africa Test. Ayaz, what drama!
Yeah,
23 wickets lost on the first day, spectacular century by Makram, and then Bumrah, Siraj, and Rabada all show their class, and India ended up winning comfortably. So what did you make of this match? And more importantly, what did you make of this pitch? Because all this happened in 5 sessions.
yeah. I mean, let's start with the pitch. It was a diabolical pitch, as we know. I mean, 23 wickets falling on the first day, the match ending within 2 days. This was quite unexpected. But at the same time, I thought it produced some extraordinary cricket. The kind of century that Aiden Markram made is amongst the best that one could see. I don't think I've seen a better 100 than this. A counter-attacking 100 in such a dire situation that his team found itself in, and to go out and play that knock, which almost gave South Africa enough cushion to defend the score. It didn't happen, but to after being bowled out for 55, to even make a defense on the second day, it was something really, really admirable. And remember, this is a series which has been highlighted by some extraordinary knocks. We had Dean Elgar making 185 in the first innings. We had KL Rahul making a superb 100 when India batted in the first innings. Of course, we lost that match by an innings. But three centuries that we've seen were all top draws. So we've seen some really high quality batting from both teams. Don't forget Virat Kohli. He also had a couple of good knocks to his credit. But we've also seen some outstanding bowling from Mohammad Siraj in this match. 6 for 15 on the first day. Jasprit Bumrah in the second innings, 6 wickets for him. Kagiso Rabada, always a threat whenever he got the ball in his hand. And of course, Nandre Berger, I thought was a find for South Africa. Coming in, not many people knew about him. So there's much to savor from this series, though the first test was extremely one-sided and the second test was too short. But the feeling you get, the flavor, the lingering feeling after this match as we speak, as we've just kind of switched off the TV after the match is ended, is hey, why isn't there one more test? Why was this a two-match series?
Yeah.
Why is there no decider? Because the contest, the fight, the struggle between both the teams was so good to watch, so exciting to watch. And therein, I think also is the issue of what happens to Test cricket, because South Africa go from here to New Zealand to play a two-test match series without all their regular players. Dean Elgar, of course, retired, but imagine a team without Rabada, without NGD, without Aiden Markram, and so on. I mean, it's such a shame that you have the World Test Championship cycle going on, and you send a rookie team. I mean, no disrespect meant to the players who are in the South African team, but really, this is not the team that South Africa should have sent or would have wanted to send. But that's how the dice has fallen, and this is something that the ICC needs to consider. Also, Pakistan. I mean, Anirudh, in the third Test match in Pakistan versus Australia, they're playing without Shaheen Shah Afridi, who's been rested for workload or for whatever reason. But imagine your main bowler not playing. I mean, it's quite ridiculous that he's keeping himself kind of fresh for the white ball series, which will follow immediately after the Test match. Now, if this is the cavalier way in which you're going to treat Test cricket, then how can Test cricket survive?
Yeah, so we've been talking about this for months now, and then this South Africa series in New Zealand that clashes with the SA20, their home domestic T20 league. So, is this like a concrete step towards what we predicted was going to happen in the future?
I mean, you could look at it that way. I mean, first concrete step, there may be many steps. We've seen, I mean, Test cricket in the West Indies, for instance, has slumped so badly uh, for many reasons, but amongst them also one of the biggest reasons has been the emergence of the Caribbean Premier League as a fantastic alternative for cricketers, for players, as well as for fans. There have been former players who've said, Nicholas Poulos, I think Steve Waugh or somebody said, one of the Australian players said that if Nicholas or Ian Chappell, that Nicholas Pooran could be West Indies' best test player, but he's not in the test team. So neither is Jason Holder, who opted out. So I think there's serious introspection that needs to be done by the ICC, by the respective cricket boards, because everybody's paying lip service to kind of let cricket grow, if not survive, but grow. But nobody is doing enough to ensure that it follows that trajectory. So right now, what we've got is England, Australia, and Pakistan and India are the three countries which more or less are regularly playing test cricket with each other in in Test series which are not all restricted to 2 matches. And the others are battling to even get recognition. I mean, the Aussies have been complaining. Steve Waugh said that something should be done. He's actually, he's pleaded with the ICC to step in and stop this decline. But hey, Australia hasn't played Afghanistan, hasn't played Bangladesh, doesn't play Zimbabwe. So, I mean, that's what I mean is that you can't keep paying lip service. You also have to show it with action.
Yeah, and talking about Test cricket, we should talk about one of the OGs, the remaining OGs of Test cricket, which is Dean Elgar, who's been a stalwart for the South Africans for the last decade. And he might have been overshadowed by the likes of Graham Smith or Hashim Amla or De Villiers, but he's always their man in crisis who at the top stabilizing the innings. So, what kind of legacy does he leave behind? And he's also like one of the those pure Test batsmen, like we would class him in the again with Pujara or Craig Brathwaite from West Indies, those kind of purists. So they are a dying breed, as you know. But what legacy does Dean Elgar leave behind for South Africa?
I think he leave behind a legacy of character and courage. The kind of cricket that he's played, the kind of batsmanship, as you mentioned. So much of Test cricket today, batting is almost kind of, in many ways, the Test match approach has been compromised by the white ball approach, even in Test matches. We've seen that in the second match. I mean, the pitch was very dicey, very devilish, India versus South Africa, but some of the strokes that were played were befitting a T20 match or an ODI match, certainly not a Test match. So I think that Dean Elgar is one of the last players, certainly from South Africa's point of view, and they need to get some players of class. I mean, there's no AB de Villiers, there's no Graham Smith, there's no Amla, Jack Cullis, and all of those guys, legends who served South Africa so well. So they have to find somebody else now after Elgar to be a beacon. There's some promise shown by Bedingham, who I thought looked very promising in the match we played. But right now, currently, I think South Africa looks very bowling rich, but not enough depth in batting. So Dean Elgar's legacy, and I think just the sheer, the grit in the first match, that 185 which he made, he won it off his own bat. The bowlers all obviously made most of the pitch, but if he hadn't made 185, I don't think that South Africa would have defended the series. I mean, remember, he foiled India's attempt to win the series. India has squared the series, but have yet to win a series in South Africa, and that'll be a matter of some regret for Rohit Sharma's team. But the regret stems from the fact that Dean Elgar played so superbly.
Yep. So moving on to another legend of the game who is retiring is David Warner, of course, who is scored close to 9,000 runs at a strike rate of 70 in Test matches. But he also has a very colourful career off the field, be it confrontations with Joe Root and Quinton de Kock, or we can't forget Sandpaper Gate. So, what kind of legacy does he leave behind?
I mean, there are contrasting kind of, profiles or personality kind of profiles of David Warner that have emerged. You mentioned about his altercation with Joe Root when he was very young. Remember, he actually won his spurs as a Test player, as somebody who will wear the baggy green in Test cricket after doing well in T20 matches. He made a mark even in the IPL, and that's where he kind of became, and then he became a favorite of the Australian fans and selectors because of the way he played, the uninhibited approach that he had. Michael Clarke, the former Australian captain, says, and so many others are saying that he is the best all-format player that they've had, and that's very high praise. In my opinion, I would pick up Pat Cummins over him because Pat Cummins across all formats has been absolutely outstanding, especially in the last couple of years. But David Warner, I think, he's had his altercations, he's had his pangas, most recently with Mitchell Johnson. But when you look at the overall, body of work that he leaves behind, is staggering. In Test cricket, almost 9,000 runs or something like that. In ODIs, World Cup winner. In T20, World Cup winner. So these are not achievements that one can, scoff at. Whether he's been Australia's best all-format player or not is a matter of debate, and you can keep debating. Somebody else might come better than him. But in the last decade or so, and I think also for somebody like him and Steve Smith to have gone through that pressure after Sandpaper Gate and come back and kind of play a second innings of his own career in such commanding fashion is a lot of credit to him. I think that he leaves behind an absolutely wonderful legacy for Australian cricket.
Yeah. So moving on, I would like to end with what you were saying earlier. Why isn't there a third test match? But India can now look forward to hosting England, which will be the final test for baseball, perhaps. But that is later on in the month, and we'll talk about that.
Thankfully, a 5-test series. Thankfully, a 5-test series.
5-test series, yeah. So that promises to be a very volatile and interesting
Yes.
series, because again, if India prepare the kind of pitches that they do and matches get over in 2 days, there'll be this talk again, which we won't be seeing with this test. But anyway, that will be an entertaining
But
series.
Anirudh, I think one must. I think Anirudh,
Yeah.
one must say here that the complaints about pitches and all really have no. They don't have a leg to stand on. I mean, we can keep complaining about the pitch we got at Cape Town at Newlands. It was a challenging pitch. These are challenging pitches which, when you come to India, you will face. Overseas teams do face. Remember last time when Australia came here, just about a year back, they lost the first 2 test matches, and then they ended the series with 2-1. They also won the test match. So I think that you have to come prepared for the kind of pitches that India will prepare. You have to be good enough to beat India in their backyard, so to speak. And only then can you say that you are a great test team. If you can't beat India in India, like India can't beat South Africa or hasn't beaten South Africa in South Africa, you remain a little short of calling yourself a truly great team.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in the coming weeks. And that's it for Sports Room for this week. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Anirudh. Cheers. Take care. Bye.